The text arrived at 4:17 in the afternoon on a Sunday in March, while I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of a gas station 40 minutes from home, eating a granola bar because I had forgotten to eat anything since Friday morning, and my hands were shaking in the specific way they shake when your body has decided it is no longer willing to wait for you to remember it exists. The text was from my husband. It said, "The new code is 4471. Sorry, should have told you sooner." Mom thought it would be a nice surprise. I read it twice. I looked at the granola bar in my hand. I looked at the road ahead of me. The 40 minutes between where I was sitting and the house I had owned outright since before my marriage. The house my mother had helped me paint the kitchen of 7 years ago on a rainy April weekend when we had listened to the same 3 albums on repeat and argued pleasantly about the correct shade of white for the trim, and ended up, by Sunday evening, with a kitchen that was exactly right and a memory I had not known at the time I would need to hold on to with the particular care you reserve for things that cannot be replaced. I had buried my mother the day before. I had stood at a graveside in early March rain with my sister Donna and my mother's oldest friend Carol, and a minister my mother had genuinely liked, and approximately 40 people who had loved her in various ways over 71 years. And I had held myself together with the specific, effortful composure of someone who has decided that falling apart is something she will do later, in private, when the necessary things are done. I had spoken at the service. I had thanked people individually, each one by name, because my mother would have done this, and it felt like the right way to honor her. I had driven Donna to the airport afterward and sat in the departure lane with the hazard lights on, and held her hand through the car window and said I would call her in the morning. I had watched her walk into the terminal with her rolling bag and her grief, and I had sat in the car for a few minutes before I could make myself drive. Then I had driven home. My key had not worked. I had stood at my own front door for 30 seconds, trying the key twice with the particular suspended disbelief of someone whose body has not yet caught up to what her mind is registering, before I understood that the lock had been changed. Not stuck. Changed. The key entered the cylinder differently. Or rather, it did not enter the cylinder properly at all. The wrong key for the wrong lock. A fact that communicated itself in the first half turn as information my hands understood, before my mind had finished processing it. I had sat on my own front step for 10 minutes, in my funeral clothes, in the cold March air, with the specific surreal quality of a moment that does not fit into any category you have prepared for. I had called Thomas. He had not answered. I had texted. The read receipt appeared immediately. He had seen it, but the reply had not come for 40 minutes. The new code is 4471. Sorry, should have told you sooner. Mom thought it would be a nice surprise. I put the granola bar down on the passenger seat. I put the car in drive. I pulled out of the gas station lot and onto the highway, and I thought, with the particular cold clarity of a person who has just located the load-bearing point of a very large and very long-standing problem, about what I was going to do next. Not immediately. Not tonight. Tonight, I was going to go home and unlock my door with a code I had been texted and eat something and sleep. But after tonight, after I had given my body the rest and food it was owed and given my grief the private space it had been waiting for, I was going to do something I had not done in 9 years of marriage. I was going to stop managing and start addressing. My name is Ellen Marsh. I am 36 years old. I have been married to Thomas Marsh for 9 years, and I have known his mother Gloria for 10, and in those 10 years I have developed, through sustained daily practice and close professional quality observation, an understanding of Gloria Marsh that is as complete and precise as any understanding I have ever developed of any complex system I have been paid to manage. Let me tell you about Gloria, because Gloria is not incidental to this story. Gloria is the load-bearing structure of it. Everything else, the locks, the code, the furniture, the casserole. Everything else is expression. Gloria is the architecture. Gloria Marsh was 64 years old, and she was, in the particular way of certain women of a certain generation who have organized the entire structure of their identity around a single child, and who have done this so completely and for so long that they have lost the capacity to perceive the boundary between their child's life and their own. A person of absolute and unexamined conviction about her own rightness. Not arrogance, exactly. Arrogance is aware of itself. What Gloria had was something more fundamental. A genuine, deep, apparently unshakable belief that her judgment about what was best for the people she loved was simply correct, and that acting on this judgment, regardless of whether those people had invited the action, was not overreach but care. She was not cruel in the obvious register. She did not say cutting things about my cooking, or my appearance, or my choices in language that could be quoted back to her. She was far too precise for that, and precision was, I had understood for a long time, her defining quality. What she did instead was operate entirely within the register of the helpful. The endless, relentless, genuinely suffocating register of a woman who was only trying to help, who just wanted what was best for everyone, who didn't mean anything by it, and who deployed this register with the practiced, unconscious accuracy of a tool she had been refining for 64 years and had never once been required to put down. She had rearranged my kitchen cabinets twice in the first year of our marriage because she had noticed that the organization wasn't quite efficient and had thought I would appreciate the improvement. She had replaced the bathroom towels once because the existing ones were getting a bit worn. They were not getting a bit worn. I had bought them 8 months prior, and they were perfectly good, and had left the new set on the counter with a small handwritten note that said, "Hope you like these," in her neat, rounded handwriting. She had, on 3 occasions I was aware of, and likely more that I was not, told Thomas in conversations I was absent from that she worried about me, that I seemed tired, that I worked too much, that she hoped I was taking care of myself. These were individually caring observations, and collectively a sustained, patient, years-long argument that I was somehow insufficient to the life Thomas deserved, delivered in a register that made it impossible to address directly without appearing to be ungrateful for someone's concern. She had once, while I was at work on a Tuesday, reorganized the garage because she had been visiting and had noticed it could use some attention. She had done this without being asked, without informing me in advance, and had presented it afterward as a gift. I hope you don't mind, I just thought it might help, in the specific way that presents a fait accompli as though it were an offer, leaving the recipient with no practical choice but to receive it graciously. Thomas, for his part, loved his mother with the uncritical, reflexive warmth of a man who had never been required to see her clearly, because seeing her clearly would have cost him something significant, and he had never been asked to pay it. He was not a bad person. I want to say this plainly and without qualification, because it is both true and important to the honesty of this account. Thomas was not bad. He was a person who had been raised in the belief, so foundational it had never been examined, that his mother's comfort was a legitimate prior claim on the people around him, and who had never encountered sufficient sustained friction to require him to revisit this belief. He was therefore not equipped, through no fault he had ever recognized as fault, for the situation that Gloria's presence in our life had been building toward, slowly and incrementally, for 9 years. I had understood all of this. I had understood it for a long time, not immediately, not in the first year when the cabinet reorganization could be attributed to generosity, but by year 3 certainly, and with increasing clarity after that. I had managed it with the patient, continuous diplomacy of a person who loves her husband, and has decided that the friction of his mother is a manageable feature of the shared life rather than a disqualifying one. For 9 years, I had managed it. I had been, in fact, exceptional at managing it. So exceptional that Thomas had never been required to manage it himself, because I had absorbed every instance before it could reach him in a form that required his response. This was the central thing I had not understood about what I was doing. I had thought I was managing a difficult situation. What I had actually been doing was preventing the situation from ever being visible to the person who had the standing and the obligation to address it. I had been so effective at absorption that Thomas had never had to see the full picture. And if Thomas had never seen the full picture, Thomas had never had to choose. And the choice, the real choice, the one that had been waiting 9 years to be made, was the only thing that could actually change anything. I understood this on a Sunday afternoon in March, sitting in my car 40 minutes from home, with a text from my husband and a key that no longer fit my own door. The decision to change the locks had been made, as I learned later, on Friday afternoon while I was sitting with my sister Donna in our mother's house 60 miles away, going through the first hours of the aftermath of a death. The calls that need to be made, the papers that need to be found, the particular slow devastation of moving through a house that still holds the exact shape of someone who is no longer in it. My mother's mug on the kitchen counter, her book open on the side table, page marked, as if she had just stepped away and would be back for it. Her reading glasses folded beside the lamp. The specific cruelty of objects that do not know yet. Thomas had called me at 9 that Friday evening. He had said all the right things. He had been warm and present on the phone in the way he was genuinely capable of being when the situation was clear enough to make the right response obvious. He told me to take all the time I needed. He said he loved me. He asked if there was anything I needed from home, and I said no, and we said goodnight. He did not mention that his mother had arrived at our house that afternoon, approximately 3 hours before his phone call, with a locksmith she had apparently researched, contacted, and scheduled in the period between my departure on Thursday morning and Friday noon. The locksmith had installed new deadbolts on both the front and back doors. He had been there for approximately 2 hours. Gloria had apparently stood in the entryway and supervised, offering opinions about the hardware, because the hardware she had selected, which I discovered when I finally examined it properly, was a different style and finish from the existing hardware on the rest of the door, a discrepancy that would not have occurred to someone who lived in the house and had chosen the existing hardware deliberately. Gloria had decided, and I use this word with full awareness of its implications, that the existing locks were old and not sufficiently secure, and that having them replaced would be one less thing for Ellen to worry about when she came home. She had not called me to discuss this. She had not texted Thomas to ask whether I might prefer to make this decision myself. She had decided, acted, and then, because this was the register of the helpful operating at full efficiency, presented it as a gift. She had also, in the time between the locksmith's departure and my arrival the following afternoon, rearranged the living room furniture into a configuration she apparently found more functional than the one I had chosen when we moved in. The sofa had been moved 18 inches and rotated slightly. The chairs had been repositioned. The throw pillows I had chosen, which I had selected carefully, which I had liked, had been replaced with a set she had brought from her own house, apparently because she had never approved of mine. There was a casserole in the refrigerator, large, covered in foil, labeled in her handwriting. Beside it, a note. Thought you could use a home-cooked meal after everything you've been through. Thinking of you. Love, Gloria. I read the note standing at the open refrigerator in my funeral clothes at 5 in the afternoon, having let myself into my own house by entering a 4-digit code that my husband had texted me. I stood there for a moment with the refrigerator open and the cold air on my face and the note in my hand. Then I put it back on top of the foil. I closed the refrigerator. I did not eat the casserole that evening or at any point afterward. I went to the bedroom. I lay down on the bed without changing my clothes. I looked at the ceiling and I thought about my mother. Not about the week, not about the graveside or the minister or the 40 people or the hand through the car window. I thought about a specific Saturday afternoon 7 years ago, in this house, in the kitchen down the hall, with rain on the windows and music playing, and my mother standing in the middle of the room with a paintbrush in her hand, turning to say something she had just thought of and starting to laugh before she got the sentence out. The laugh that came from somewhere real in her. The laugh I had heard my entire life and would not hear again. I cried properly for the first time since Thursday. Without managing it, without composing it for any audience. For a long time, and then until I was done. And then I washed my face and went to my home office, and I called Renata. Renata Ose had been my closest friend since we were 22 years old and in adjacent graduate programs, and she was now a family law attorney 11 years into a practice that had given her the particular quality of a person who has spent over a decade watching people be blindsided by things they should have been protected from, and who has developed, from this sustained experience, a deep personal urgency about acting before surprise calcifies into crisis. She answered on the second ring. She knew about my mother. I had called her from the hospital on Thursday evening, from the corridor outside the room, in the 10 minutes before I went back in. She said what she needed to say first, the human things, and I received them and thanked her, and then I told her about the locks. She listened to all of it without speaking. When I finished, she was quiet for a specific moment, the quiet of someone organizing information rather than the quiet of someone at a loss. And then she said, "Is the house in both your names or only yours?" "Only mine," I said. "I bought it 2 years before Thomas and I met. We always said we'd add him to the deed at some point, and we never formalized it." "And the lock change? Did you consent to it in any form? Text, email, conversation, anything, at any point?" "No." "Did Thomas consult you before authorizing it, before it happened?" "He texted me the code while I was eating a granola bar in a gas station parking lot 40 minutes from home." Renata was quiet for another moment. Then she said, in the careful voice of a professional delivering a legal fact with precision, "Ellen, someone changed the locks on a property that belongs solely to you, without your knowledge, without your consent, and without any prior discussion. The intent is not a mitigating factor." She meant well is not a mitigating factor. You are the sole owner of record. No one, not his mother, not your husband, not any other person, has the authority to alter access to that property without your explicit authorization. "I know," I said. "But I want to ask you something before we talk about what to do," she said, and her voice changed slightly, less attorney, more the person I had known for 14 years. "How long has this been building?" I looked at the ceiling of my home office. I thought about 9 years of rearranged cabinets and replaced towels and reorganized garages and worried conversations I was not present for. I thought about the register of the helpful and what it costs to navigate it every day for 9 years. I thought about whether I had ever, in those 9 years, added up the total cost rather than managing each individual charge as it arrived. "A long time," I said. "Then here is what I think," Renata said. "The locks give you something specific, something documented, unambiguous, and legally clear. 9 years of individual incidents, each one individually absorbable, each one individually defensible as well-intentioned, is very difficult to address, for you, and even more so in any formal context. But one clear, specific, unambiguous act of unauthorized access to your property, committed on the day you buried your mother, that is a different category of thing entirely." She told me to document everything from this point forward. Every instance of Gloria acting on or in my property without explicit consent. Every conversation with Thomas about her access and his response. Every time the word helping or just trying to appeared in the justification for an action I had not requested. Date, time, description, verbatim, where possible. I was an operations manager at a mid-size logistics company. I had been documenting complex processes for 12 years. I was already, even as she spoke, composing the format in my head. "Renata," I said, "what do I actually want? That's what you're going to ask me." She laughed, brief, surprised. "Yes, that's exactly what I was going to ask." "I want my house back," I said. "All of it. Every room. Every decision that gets made in it. I want to feel at home in my own home the way I felt at home in it before I shared it with someone who treats it as though her judgment supersedes mine in every room she enters." "Then that's what we're working toward," she said. "Call me Thursday, and Ellen, don't say anything to Thomas yet, I know that's hard. Wait until we've spoken Thursday. I said I would wait. I was already, I understood, beginning the particular discipline of the position I was now in, gathering the full picture before making any move, not reacting at the point of discovery, understanding completely before acting. I had practiced this discipline professionally for 12 years. Now I was going to need it personally. Those 6 days between coming home to the changed locks and the Thursday conversation with Thomas were among the most clarifying I had spent in 9 years of marriage. Not comfortable, clarifying. There is a specific and important difference. Clarity about something you have been managing without fully seeing is not a pleasant sensation. It is the sensation of a picture coming into focus that you had been keeping slightly blurred because the blurred version was easier to continue with. I spoke with Renata twice more by phone. I met with a family therapist she recommended, Dr. Patricia Huang, whose office was downtown, a quiet woman in her early 50s with the specific gift of asking questions whose answers revealed things you had not known you knew until the question made them available. She asked me to describe the last time I had felt fully at home in my own house. Uncomplicated, unguarded, entirely at ease. I sat with this question for longer than I expected. I found, when I sat with it honestly, that the most recent moment I could identify with confidence was approximately 3 years ago. A Sunday morning in January, when Thomas was traveling for work and Gloria was visiting her sister in Florida, and the house was simply, without modification or management or navigation, mine. 3 years ago. That was the last time. I wrote this in my documentation. I did not write it as an accusation. I wrote it as a fact because it was one, because facts are what you work with and what the world responds to, and because I had decided, somewhere between the gas station parking lot and the Thursday conversation, that I was done working with anything less. Thomas came home on Thursday at 6:30. He brought flowers, which I accepted and put in water without comment. He made dinner, pasta, the one he made when he wanted to demonstrate that he understood the situation required effort. We ate. When the dishes were cleared, I sat down at the kitchen table and said, "I want to talk about the locks, and not just the locks." He sat down across from me. He was present in the full sense, not performing attentiveness, but actually giving it, the way he was capable of when he understood that something genuinely required it. I told him everything. Not with 9 years of compressed heat released at once. That was not what this was. I told him the way I present operational findings at work. Clearly, specifically, in order, without embellishment. I told him about the cabinets, reorganized twice, the towels, the garage, the worried conversations I was not part of. The 9 years of she was only trying to help, and what 9 years of that phrase had accumulated into, in the actual texture of my daily life, in my own home. I told him about Sunday, about standing on my front step in the clothes I had worn to my mother's funeral with a key that didn't work, and a grief that had nowhere to go yet because I was still standing on the wrong side of my own door. I told him about the casserole and the note and the new pillows and what it felt like to enter the code that my husband had texted me and walk into a living room that had been rearranged by someone who had never been asked. I told him about the Sunday morning in January 3 years ago, the last time I had felt fully at home. Thomas was quiet for a long time when I finished. Not defensive quiet, not formulating a response quiet. The quiet of someone sitting with something true that he had not previously allowed himself to see in its complete form, because seeing it complete would require him to do something he had not been ready to do. "I didn't know it had accumulated like that," he said. "I know you didn't," I said, "because I managed each piece before it reached you in a form that required your response. I absorbed it individually, every time, and I never showed you the total. I'm showing you the total now." He was quiet again. Then, "What do you need?" The right question. The first right question he had asked on this subject in 9 years. I gave it the precise answer it deserved. I need Gloria not to have access to this house without my explicit prior consent. Not a general understanding, not an open-door arrangement, not whenever she happens to be in the area. Explicit, specific. My consent, given in advance, every single time. And I need that to come from you. Clearly, directly. Not as a suggestion, but as a boundary you hold and maintain. She'll be hurt, he said. That is a conversation for you to have with her, I said. How you manage her feelings about a boundary in my home is your work to do, not mine. I have been managing her feelings about my own house for 9 years. That ends now. Thomas looked at me. I looked back at him with the steadiness of someone who has sat with a decision for 6 days and is not uncertain about it. I watched him stand at the fork I had known for years was coming. The fork between the road that required him to change something real and the road that required him to ask me to continue absorbing. I watched him arrive at it, and I watched him choose. Okay, he said. Specifically, I said. He told me specifically what okay meant. I listened to every word, asking clarifying questions where the language was vague until the language was not vague. When he finished, I told him that I was changing the locks the following Saturday and that the new code would be mine, shared according to my judgment on my terms, and that this was not a discussion. He said okay to this as well, and what I saw in his face when he said it was not the compliance of someone who has been overruled, but the specific, effortful expression of a man who is paying a real cost for a real choice. I respected this. It mattered to me that the choice cost something, because choices that cost nothing do not hold. I called my mother's sister, my Aunt Vera, who had been at the funeral and who had known my mother for 71 years and who had a way of saying things that cut directly to what they were. The evening before the locksmith came. I had not told her about the locks until now. I told her the whole story. She listened in the particular silence of someone who is not surprised and is deciding how honest to be. When I finished, she said, "Your mother would have said it sooner." "I know," I said. "But you said it," she said. "That's what counts." We talked for an hour about my mother, about specific memories, about the kitchen and the paint and the right shade of white for the trim, about a summer vacation when we were children, and our mother had organized an entire impromptu adventure from a canceled flight that had become, in the family's collective memory, one of the best trips we ever took. We laughed at some of it. We were quiet at some of it. When I hung up, I felt something I had not felt since Thursday. Not okay, not healed, not finished with any of the grief that was going to take a long time. But present, in the room, in the life that was continuing. The locksmith arrived on Saturday at 9. Her name was Sandra, and she worked with the efficient, unceremonious competence of someone who does this every day and finds it straightforwardly satisfying. She replaced both deadbolts and the backdoor hardware and handed me the new keys when she was done with a simple, matter-of-fact courtesy that I found, in the context of what the keys meant, quietly moving. I held them for a moment before I put them in my pocket. My keys, my locks, my door. I called Renata from the kitchen. "Done?" she said. "Done. How do you feel?" I looked around the kitchen, the cabinets in the order I had chosen and restored, the trim in the right shade of white. The throw pillows, my throw pillows, the ones I had selected, back on the sofa where I had returned them the Monday after coming home. The living room furniture back in the configuration I had put it in when we moved in, which I had restored on Tuesday with the specific, deliberate satisfaction of reclaiming a space one decision at a time. I thought about my mother in this kitchen, her presence in it, not the absence, which I was learning to carry, but the presence itself, which did not leave just because she did. The way she moved through a room she was comfortable in. The laugh. "Clear," I said. "It feels completely clear." Renata was quiet for a moment. "Maintenance," she said. "This is maintenance work, you understand? Gloria does not transform. Thomas does not transform overnight. This requires ongoing attention. I know, I said. But what you have now is different from what you had 2 weeks ago. You have a conversation on record, an explicit agreement, a set of locks that you control, a husband who made a real choice rather than a comfortable non-choice. That is a foundation that did not exist before. No, I said. It didn't. We talked for a long time. About the case, about her work, about Donna, about the trip I had booked to visit my sister. Flights purchased the morning Sandra came, the first thing I had done in weeks that was entirely and uncomplicated for me. No management required, just a decision made and carried out. I told Renata I was leaving in 3 weeks. She said good. She said to send her something from wherever they were going. When I hung up, I made tea and sat at the kitchen table with it and did nothing in particular for a while. The afternoon light was coming through the window at the angle it came in at this time of day in late March. The specific quality of a season at its threshold. The light of something ending and something else beginning. Not dramatic, but real and steady and present. I thought about my mother in this room one more time. Not the grief of her. I had time and space for that, plenty of it ahead of me. Grief being the kind of work that does not hurry and should not be hurried. I thought about the specific, ordinary, irreplaceable fact of her. The way she stood, the way she laughed, the way she had once stood at this counter with a paintbrush and turned to say something and started laughing before the sentence arrived. I thought about what Aunt Vera had said. Your mother would have said it sooner, but you said it. That's what counts. I said it. The tea was hot. The keys were in my pocket. The house was mine. Not in the complicated, negotiated, continuously managed sense it had been for 9 years, but in the simple, complete, unqualified sense of a thing that belongs to you and that you have decided clearly and finally to keep. Outside the window, the light held a little longer than it had the week before. March doing what March does at its end. Giving a little more each day, the lengthening that you barely notice individually, but that accumulates, day by patient day, into something you can feel. I sat in it. That was enough. That was entirely and precisely enough.